Just 1 minute to talk about Doctor Who. Just 1 minute, or maybe two. Welcome to YouTube, we're talking Doctor Who. For you.
Hello, well this is the first of 26 videos, but that will be spaced over the next few years. So since doing the rankings of the first 7 Doctors, I've started watching Doctor Who again from the start. And I've never watched Doctor Who in order before. I've done the odd bit, the odd season here and there, but most of it I have not watched in order. So I'm doing it. So as I record this, I'm partway through season 2. So this is a chance to revisit season 1, look at how I ranked the stories in season 1 in the overall First Doctor rankings, and then see how things might have changed on the rewatch. So these are the rankings from the First Doctor video. So a good showing for the stories of this season. I rated them very highly. Now, I'm not going to be ranking them in the context of the whole First Doctor era. That was what I did before. I'm just going to be re-ranking them in terms of where they fall within this season. I might make some comment about where, does the Sensorites... Is it the worst of the season, and does it still deserve to be the worst of Hartnell's era? Maybe. But for now, we're just doing... How does this season rank? So... An Unearthly Child comes in second, which is the position it held in the season before. Enjoyed this, as I always do. First episode, as ever, very, very strong. And the caveman stuff is interesting. And we will be revisiting the story in the results for the Is Doctor Who Woke survey. If you're unaware of that, I'm running a survey about that question. Links in the description down below if you haven't taken part and you want to. Basically asking people to define what they mean by woke, whether they think it's a good thing, and then a whole bunch of questions about how that relates to Doctor Who. And because some people talk about the very beginnings of the show, we have to talk about An Unearthly Child in that context. So it was interesting watching again in that light. Really, really good start to the series, and it does hold its place in second of season 1. Now, the Daleks has dropped a place. So I had the Daleks in third season-wise. It has dropped. That's largely on the basis that another story has leapt up. But the thing that struck me this time, and I don't like to kick him, but it is very obvious that the better parts of the story are directed by Christopher Barry and the less good parts of the story are directed by Richard Martin. And that's a theme. I'm gonna talk a little bit about direction as we go through. But the change in direction, story to story, is much more obvious watching in sequence. That's the thing that's really stood out to me this time watching through. It's not that the Daleks is a bad story; it's a good story, but there are points where it drags, and they just happen to be the parts that are directed by Richard Martin. It could just be coincidence, but I'm not entirely sure. Strong start though. It's been pipped by something else. The Edge of Destruction comes in 6th place, still in 6th place. There's been very little movement, just to kind of give you a spoiler on this. Obviously, I ranked it in the top half of First Doctor stories, so it's still one that I enjoy. It's just there's so much better in season 1 than this particular story, so that's why it finds itself in that position. And now here's the one that's moved up. So I had Marco Polo in 5th. I've now got it in 3rd. I think it's always been a story that I've enjoyed. Just to kind of let you know that the way that I experience Missing Stories is largely through the soundtrack recordings and with the narrated filling in the gaps and the animations. I've never really got on with Telesnap recons. So this is purely on the basis of re-listening to the CD. MP3 versions of the CD. I have been watching the stories off DVD rather than iPlayer, but as far as the CD goes, those were ripped to MP3 a while ago. So this was listening to MP3, and just the story kind of gripped me more than it has done in the past. I was listening to Toby Haydock's parlour game about stories that people wanted to come back, and there's lots in this story that people were kind of talking about wanting to see. The Sandstorm in particular is one of those things orally it's really gripping, and you wonder how it works in the studio. And it might be one of those stories that if it turned up would be more disappointing. On the direction front, Maurice Hussain and John Crockett, I've got that right, haven't I? Yes, are the stronger directors of the season with An Unearthly Child and the Aztecs. So it's one of those stories where you're like, actually, I would love to see it because, those guys directed well, and it's a shame that it's their work from season 1 that is missing. Keys and Marinus comes in 7th, and again, this is the direction of this is not so good. There are plenty of dodgy moments where cameras aren't quite in the right place, or the blocking isn't really good, or the guy spinning around the wall is in shot, and it all amounts to a production that's not as good as it could have been. Because the story's fine. It's not great, but the story's fine. It's an interesting idea. Just execution lets it down, which is why it's ended up at this position in the season. The Aztecs, yes. So the Aztecs remains my favourite of the season, and it's one of those ones where you just go. It might be the combination of director and story, because he never directed again for Doctor Who. I don't know why. And you're going to go, well, if you'd swapped Crockett with Martin, would you have got better results? But it may just be that it's the material that kind of suits his style of direction. But I just thought that, the way that the camera moves, the way that it's composed, the way that cuts happen, it just really, really helps this story come alive. And then the performances are uniformly kind of good. And it's it's a really, really interesting story. And I guess I like the historicals, I like the historical stories of the Hartnell era. I know they weren't so popular at the time, but I like, exploring history, and seeing how different people have been at different times, and cut from the constraints of everything that comes later in the Troughton era onwards, where you land in the past and there's an alien there, which gets quite formulaic and boring. This is like, we've landed in the past and the peril is the fact that we're in the past, and that's a much more interesting story to me, and it's done really, really well in the Aztecs. So yeah, the Sensorites is still at the bottom. I actually, when I first did the preference of Reeler before I got around to recording the videos, my idea was that I would rewatch the one that came out bottom for each Doctor before I decided to watch all of Doctor Who again. So I did actually watch the Sensorites then, and then I watched it. I was like, do I have to watch it now in place? And so I know I did. I was good. I watched it in place. So I've watched the Sensorites like twice in the last 6 months. Is it the worst Hartnell story? I don't know. It is still the worst of this season. I enjoy the Keys and Mariners more than the Sensorites. And even the first episode, which everybody's like, yeah, it's the best one, it's still not great. In future videos, when I revisit seasons 2, 3, and the beginning of 4, I might come back and be like, do I think that there's anything that's worse than the Sensorites? But yeah, it doesn't work for me, sadly. There's some interesting ideas in there, but altogether, it's not a great production. So that leaves the Reign of Terror. So the Reign of Terror, again, with the Daleks, they've popped down because Marco Polo was popped up, I think. I'm still surprised that the Reign of Terror came out 6th overall for Hartnell, because, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching it this time around. I like the writing of Dennis Spooner. I'm not sure it's a top 10 Hartnell. I'm not sure. I like the animation style. Obviously, the editing is atrocious. That's the thing that everybody picks up on. And I did find myself watching it going, oh, I do wish that this story was complete. It would be nice to kind of have this as a whole production, because what is there is good. And it's a fun story. I'm just not sure it's a top 10 Hartnell, but it definitely sits here in the season. It's a reasonably strong ending to a really, really strong season. So that's my list. Do let me know what you think. Do you agree with my original list more than my kind of revisited list? So I will be doing these as and when I finish season. so they will come out sporadically over the coming few years. As I record this, I've just finished the Web Planet, so I'm about halfway through season 2. So revisiting that will come up at some point in the next month or so. I would hope. In the meantime, there are other Tomorrow things in the pipeline. As I said, if you want to take part in the survey, link down below. There are various other bits that I've, when I did the trailer to advertise what was coming, those are all in the works at various stages. We'll see when they appear, sometime later this year.
Just 1 minute to talk about Doctor Who. Just 1 minute, or maybe 2. Welcome to YouTube, we're talking Doctor Who.